Welcome to Tech Talk Live. It's time to talk tech. It's Tuesday, March 4th.
3-4.
I'm Jack Armstrong.
And I'm Sam
3-4.
Giacomo.
This week has
Welcome to
gone
the
really
show.
quickly. Welcome
Yeah,
to the
I
show,
guess
as
you could say
always.
that. You know,
Seems
Tuesday
like
already.
it. Oh my gosh, it's Tuesday again. And we've got a new iPad Air. This is pretty interesting. Are you upgrading your iPad?
So I'm not really. Okay. I mean, this whole thing was kind of a bizarre announcement. You had Tim Cook releasing it with a single tweet that read, "Introducing the newest iPad Air." So I guess the humor is the fact that there's not really much to say. But it has a new keyboard case on it. So
It's built for Apple Intelligence, and they're going with light speed as the little marketing lingo, which is interesting. I don't know where they get that. Light speed, all right, cool. You've got the M3 chip, and it's available in 11 and 13-inch models. So, yeah, iPad Air, which I think the iPad Pros are pretty popular personally. I think a lot of people like going with the higher models. If you're gonna have a device you're gonna keep for a while, most people like it. But anyway, I don't know where the Air kind of fits in as they're larger, but also kind of it's weird. How would you describe how should we describe how the iPad Air, like who this device is built for? It's not your mini. It's not your iPad.
it's a good question. Okay, like it really is not
weird. It's really weird.
I put it, I put it in the title because we have to talk about it. Tim Cook tweeted about it. It's got a new chip. It's got a new keyboard case. But other than that, it's kind of one of the saddest modern day Apple product announcements we've really ever seen. I mean, it's just sort of
if you want to keep your kids quiet and gaming and doing things for school, I don't know. That seems like the vibe they're going with without a formal announcement. Do you know what I mean? Like, all right, buy the new iPad. Here's the next generation. Like it's because they know that the people buying this device don't need an announcement. I think that's what's telling here. That's how I see it. It's like tech people who like the pro models, the flagship devices. We love keynotes. We love formal announcements. We love announcement video.
I mean, this wasn't even worth it. It's like who's this? I mean, as you said, like who's this for? I mean, this really isn't even. It's just sad. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't mean to be like so negative about an Apple product announcement. Like, how dare I? But it's just a single tweet, and in the M3 processor, which is just sort of like it's already an older chip, and it replaces the M2 iPad Air, which is the second shortest turnaround apparently in Apple's history as far as the shortest lived iPad ever released. So time between product launches.
Wow.
The only one being closer is the third generation iPad back in October of 2012. So kind of breaking history for being the quickest turnaround, and really not much else. I mean, it has a new keyboard case. And honestly, we should just move on and start talking about the drones, maybe. I don't know.
Well, yeah. So Amazon's drones. Okay, moving on. I guess you're right.
I mean, there's nothing else to talk about. It's like it's got a keyboard. It's got a new chip. It's literally the same. It's just exactly the
You
same.
probably shouldn't buy it. Maybe just
It's
for your
bad.
kids'
Okay, I would just,
classes. Like,
if you were gonna buy one
maybe.
anyway, it's a great way to get a newer one at a better, I guess, a slightly better newer one. Anyway,
It's just
let's move on. You know,
yeah.
unless you have something to add, I'm just like, I'm just starting to
It's
get annoyed at
fascinating.
Apple. You know, I really
I
can't
don't
take
even
it anymore.
know if do people even use
So
iPads
sad.
in classes? That's what I want to know. Like, do people really use iPads in classes these days? Because I never did in school, but I guess that was the early generation of iPads. It makes you wonder,
Maybe, I don't know.
like, are
Possibly.
people really buying these for classes, or is this just to entertain yourself on a flight? Or like, how are people actually using the Air models? Like, they're not powerful enough. I mean, they're still powerful, but they're
No,
not
I mean they're
powerful
plenty
enough.
powerful. The M3, right? I mean, we're kind of back to, I think, as soon as the iPad had the M1, it's the main limitation is iPad OS. You know, think about how capable, the iPad, um, the iPad 1 was, with the M1.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, we're if you were thinking of buying one, now you've got an updated, refreshed model, but most people probably won't need this. And I think that shows why they don't really do much of an announcement. So yeah, moving on. So Amazon's delivery drones are
Yeah,
grounded.
let's talk about this. This is pretty funny.
So it seems like in College Station, Texas, they've had quite the fiasco with Amazon launching a pilot program for drone delivery, and it didn't go well.
Yeah, so just imagine. I guess the neighbors describe it as a fleet of flying chainsaws. Um, just kind of whizzing around. It's I don't know. It's just, it seems to be like well, let's just say I don't know. I mean, it really was not perhaps planned. I mean, I just, it just blows my mind that, I don't know, like, because it starts with an idea, right? It's like people desire convenient delivery that is fast, but yet there's no thought placed into the um to really just anything else, like
Yeah.
anything at all. I mean, it's just sort of like, so like, because like, how do we do it? A drone, like, a drone is
Well,
loud. A drone,
okay.
there's so many, like,
I also can't hesitate to bring up the fact that it's Amazon and already not heavily like, look, we like Amazon because it's convenient, but it's Amazon. Do we really want Amazon taking over the skies with drones over our houses? Look, I feel like it might have been received a little more favorably if it was some sort of a startup. It still might not have ended well, but at least it wouldn't have been, oh, this is Amazon, Amazon. Amazon does kind of have they don't have the best reputation, and I don't know if you've heard this lately. Their fees have been every year getting higher and higher. If you're a seller on Amazon, your business is
we
sure
could
you're reaching more
honestly have a
customers.
full show on this. No, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, the way,
like
there's there's a lot of ways that you can, well, that Amazon is anti-competitive, and they
yeah.
won't admit it. But the thing is like, they hold all the cards. They know what people buy. They know what you're looking at. They know what sells the best. They know what, the house always wins when we're talking about Amazon. Amazon
It
is,
seems that way.
well, they have all the information. Like, think about it. They're a marketplace where they know everything about what you're looking at, what you're buying, what you're actually spending your money on. So, I mean, there's kind of a strong incentive to use that information to make more money. I mean, really, the only thing that's preventing Amazon from not using that information against you is their honesty. And we all know how that works out for,
No, you're absolutely right. Well, I feel like I think their fee, I mean, if you're a merchant that's been relying on Amazon, it's a price race to the bottom is what a lot of sellers describe it as. And it's like
No, that's very, very, very fair. Yeah.
you're like side by side, people are comparison shopping, really not about quality. And then, can reviews be trusted? Are there other sellers trying to take down, successful merchants? It's kind of just a lot of, oh, this is, kind of a mess. And so I think Amazon's delivery program, drone delivery program, uh, I do have to say it's like this huge company that's not, they're liked, but they're not like, loved. And I think that probably has something to play with why it didn't go as well as maybe it could have. But yeah, just the fact that, it's Amazon doing it. Do we really need them to be, you know, doing it? And so it's interesting. I think it also brings up the question of privacy, in the Wired article that we're referring to or that covered the story. Uh, Someone apparently was afraid to use the swimming pool in their backyard because of the drone's camera. Even though the camera faces forward and not down, the fact that there's a camera on it, some people didn't want to go outside, so
Well,
Amazon can't
I mean,
see them. I mean,
look, that's fair.
also, yeah, how much data are they collecting, right? And then also there were old people that were, you know, you know, scared that birds, now are affected. And then they thought, oh, well, is this making our houses lose value because they're in the guinea pig scenario, which is interesting. So it was, I think they just felt like this big, huge company comes in and kind of invades their privacy and their right to exist. And so it seems like this is big company that just wants to make more money. It probably could have gone better if it was a more liked company. That's just was my take.
No,
On that.
that's fair. I mean, I think it's also just a combination of it's the usual tech ethos, right? It's move fast and break things. Like introduce the drones, and then afterward we'll figure out. We'll kind of clean up any PR disaster that kind of comes from it.
Yeah.
But that all being said, it's just sort of, Amazon was very secretive about, essentially the location it chose. They basically didn't demonstrate, how loud the drones they were going to use would be. So they basically just kind of moved in without any demonstration or any sort of, and honestly, like, if you just try and strong arm something without people, just going back to the overall people are resistant to change. I mean, that's just how people are resistant to it. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is.
Oh yeah. No, I think it's people are stubborn, and it is interesting because here in LA, there are robot delivery is common. Like it's
Oh,
no,
really? Okay.
obviously it's not that many, but you can order something, and if you're near one of the store, the businesses that have partnered with, Uber Eats or whatever, you could actually get a delivery robot, you know, pedaling itself down the street a few blocks to your door, and you have to go out and greet it. So I think with this technology, they do say that it can't be a leave at your door delivery. Leave at your door means you'll always get matched with a person, but if you do meet outside delivery, you could get matched with a robot. And I think it hasn't been hated, I think, in a city here, because people do see it as kind of, I think people see it as a novelty that's actually cool, kind of like Waymo, right? The self-driving car thing. So it's interesting. Like, I feel like you can't choose. I know it's easy for them to deploy a drone delivery system, but you're choosing a suburb that people are just grumpy in. I mean, I hate to say that. It sounds like College Station, Texas did not
Well, I mean,
really care.
okay, you know, it's
I mean,
no, and you're fair. I just laugh because I mean this is kind of
but
an American thing. It's a NIMBY, you know, not in my backyard. You know, people are
I'm
supportive,
sorry, but Sam,
but they're really not.
like,
You know,
I'm sorry, but Sam, look,
I think you're just used to the noise in LA. If I be, you know, it's
no, no, look, if someone's focused on their housing prices because of the drones, like, I'm sorry, but that's ridiculous. Now, and also that's the other thing, going to your point, cities are louder and absolutely have more noise. So why not choose a city or a small area of a city to start doing it? How about, for example, the houses in the Hollywood Hills and the businesses that are down here. That look, cars hate driving up those windy roads. That would be the perfect way to get restaurants down, in LA up to people that live in the hills. And then, you know, sure, they're wealthy, they have nice houses. I mean, and they respect convenience, and they're probably not going to complain about, you know, noise because
well, I
they're the
guess
ones ordering. I don't know.
I mean to that effect. I mean, what would you say about one of the concerns, right, was privacy. You know, it's like, oh, the drones have cameras on them. You know, I know, the starlets who live in the hills are very, particular about that. And it's just sort of, it is very like, like the cars stay on the ground and the drones, they're not bound by any sort of traditional, um, really traditional, boundaries. And it's kind of,
Yeah.
it's it's a little bit
Well,
unsettling, right? I mean, like that concern still holds. I mean, it's just sort of, it's the noise, right? And then also the quote unquote privacy concerns. I mean,
look,
I'm sure
people
the rich
like.
people would hate the noise too. I mean, they hate everything, right?
I
I
mean,
lived in
look,
the Hollywood
I
Hills for peace and quiet, you know.
what I don't understand is, like, if you look at self-driving cars like Waymo, right? Why is that getting received like with praise, where Amazon's drone delivery was such a fail, right? I mean, I'm sorry, but there is potential for it to be successful. You just have to choose the right area. And I'm sorry, but those people don't respect the delivery process by drone. Like, that's the reality of the situation. You know? That's the reality of the situation. Okay? And I think
Yeah, I mean,
here people love the Waymo because, oh, I don't have to deal with a person. It's futuristic. It's always the same car. They seem relatively clean and well kept, and they don't have to interact with anybody. And again, like, but they're trusting this new thing to drive them around. I get it. It's not a drone, but still, like, if you have a drone delivery platform, that can get things to you on demand for maybe included with Prime, okay? Like, you're not going to be grateful for that privilege. Is To me, I just think they didn't choose a location that was fitting. That's all. It seems like to me.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, for
I
me,
mean,
it's just sort of like, do we really need this? At the end of the day, like, do you really need your toothpaste in an hour? I mean, it's not. We're not delivering.
yeah, but there is a use case though. Certain items you could get quicker. Imagine if it's something for tonight, like a party, or imagine if it is some health thing. You need a prescription, or you need, there are things that are time sensitive that could be delivered by drone in a cost effective way that saves, yeah, time. And that's part of what makes it cost effective. I think it's crazy to think about that, like, but anyway, it'll be interesting to see how the drone program evolves, but it seems like it's pulling out of College Station, Texas. No more Amazon drone delivery. People really did not like the program. So yeah, quite a fascinating topic of news of the day this week. Um, should we move on to our next? You want to talk about our next topic?
Sure. Yeah, we can. We can dive into that. It's honestly a whole lot of we don't know, and we'll have to see. Um,
Well,
so
so the
can't
man
really
himself
comment too
currently,
bad, right?
well, I think it is going to be interesting to see how tariffs affect the economy in the tech sector specifically.
Well, and that's again like, will it? For now,
Oh, for
Taiwan
sure.
is excluded. South Korea excluded. Could it change? Possibly. A lot of tech imports. At least assemblies and from China.
Yeah.
Um, it's just, it's impossible to say. I know we have to touch on it, but there's really there's no good way to tell. I don't know. It's tough for us to
Yeah.
speculate. So yeah, what does this mean? At least things across the board are going to get slightly more expensive, especially sort of finally assembled products potentially, but the raw inputs so far, um, you know, we don't really know. So
Yeah. Well, so it was believed earlier in the year that they were going to have to raise iPhone prices, which is fascinating because remember we thought these tariffs were going to take place February 1st, uh, on imports, of course, Canada, Mexico, but Chinese tariffs had doubled, and so now U.S. companies really are taking on less. There's an additional cost there, right? And so it seems like that they'll probably raise the prices consumers pay. And yeah, it's very interesting to see. I think you're right. We don't want to speculate too much, but how much of Apple's margin or Google's margin are we willing to give up here? They're not made in the US, so it's not great, you know?
well, yeah, it's all about margin, right? I guess for some of these guys, but I think ultimately it's going to, the U.S. exports a lot of tech. We, of all, that's kind of a large reason of why we've been so successful is we've exported our technology to the world. Whether it be social media or streaming or, for now AI. I don't really know how, because it's not just a percentage point, number. They can be relatively antagonizing to to people depending on how they like how, I mean, nobody likes being charged more money, right? But if it's unexpected, or it's not I think the predictability also plays a big role in how they're received.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a clear idea of just sort of, what can we do to not, it's like say we want to work with you, what can we do to not have this happen? Like,
Well, it's
what are the
interesting.
clear benchmarks? And I think for that, it's kind of hard to say.
Well, so it's also interesting, in Trump's first term, Tim Cook had apparently talked with him about making sure tariffs were not placed on the iPhone because it would harm Apple's ability to compete on a global stage, with companies like Samsung. So that's an interesting thing. Where are we going to pick and choose favorites here in the tech space on what companies can avoid tariffs and what can't? And it's going to be really interesting to see, because I think that the prices are just going to go up across the board. I think it's kind of silly. And I think that, yeah, the US consumer is going to have to pay more out of pocket to make up the difference. So that's the impact of tariffs. I mean, it's pretty well studied. I mean, they know what happens when you raise prices on imports. The consumer it's going to get passed to the consumer. There's like little say that that's not going to happen, right? I mean, look, let's take an alternative scenario, okay? Let's pretend Google and Apple, right? Both American companies. They've got their new phones coming out later in the year. We're going to have an iPhone 17, right? So when iPhone 17 comes out and the Pixel 10 comes out, and so they both experienced potentially more tariffs, which might increase the price.
The assembly, I guess, is a big
Yeah. So what's going to happen? Are they going to move assembly somewhere else? Can't be Canada and Mexico. Can't be China. So could they move it to the US? Yeah, but then that is definitely going to impact prices. If they don't, they move it to another country, Vietnam. They've already have
Vietnam
supply
or
chain.
India. I mean, that's kind of the classic. I mean, honestly, a lot of manufacturing is moving that way anyway, just
Yeah.
because it's like, believe it or not, China actually isn't the cheapest place to build stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Like, we're kind of globally, moving around. So I don't know if it's going to be a game of whack-a-mole. But usually, I don't know, like going up against the people with unlimited power and resources, it's a little bit harder than just saying, we're,
Yeah.
I'm going to do this, and then it's just like everyone's, they're just going to take it lying down in a way. And like, I wouldn't expect any single point operation from anywhere to really be effective. I mean, it's not like I don't, I don't really know. Yeah, I mean, and I'm not an economist, so, but I think, the market forces are a powerful thing to fight, to kind of fight against, whether it be artificially or otherwise, just either preventing or, or otherwise, I believe you should probably start from a free trade perspective.
Yeah.
We've tried the protectionist thing before. Let's just put it that way. I don't know how it worked out per se, but I believe it was before the Great Recession.
Yeah, I mean, look,
It may not be related. I don't know.
I think it's going to be interesting to see And, you know, we're going to see that for sure. I mean, Apple, we do have to talk about the iPhone, the new iPhone. And
Which
so
one?
we also, it doesn't seem like it's a great deal. I know we've touched, did we touch on this? Oh my gosh,
I think we
I'm
talked about it last
completely
week. I mean, it's so forgettable though. It's really not.
blanking. Well, that's the thing. It's like,
Did we? I mean,
I guess
honestly,
we
did
did.
we? Do we not? But one thing
I
to
know. I
highlight
don't remember.
though.
I
Um,
know.
one thing that is actually pretty big, honestly, is the Apple modem. So the inclusion of the Apple modem. So back in 2017 or so, Apple purchased the modem division, so the cellular modem division of Intel. And this
Yeah.
is kind of the product of 5+ years of development and work. And it was kind of relegated. I think we did talk about this because I had a theory as to why Apple didn't really promote this in case it
Yeah.
sucked, honestly. And they didn't want to be like, this is the first phone with the Apple A1 modem. And it's like, well, this sucks, man. Like Apple modems are
And
garbage. I think they just kind of want to kind of slip it in under the radar, hope that nobody talks about it. And if it doesn't perform as well, and we kind of saw this before, I don't know, I remember talking about this too, I think a little bit. But do you remember the iPhone 10? So there was a Qualcomm iPhone 10 and an Intel iPhone 10. And
I
there
think
were
so.
differences. There were differences in so depending on whether you got the GSM or the CDMA, your speeds were impacted and your signal strength was impacted. And I actually bought an Intel one, and I was like, hey, like, I know I bought this model, but do you guys have the the white CDMA in stock? Because by that point, I was like, well, I don't want to pay the same amount of money for an inferior product.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't know. I think that's the biggest thing to look at is like, let's let's take a look at essentially the how this thing performs,
Yeah.
and
Well,
go from there.
well,
Also,
so I
something
mean,
that we have to talk about, a new iPad. So the 11th generation iPad came out. So
yeah.
something to note, again, starts at 349. An A16 chip. So again, bigger battery chip and more storage.
And to clarify, this is
But
in
that's about it.
addition to the Air. So we
Yes.
already
So the
talked about the
11th
Air,
generation iPad.
but we also have an 11th generation iPad. So why would somebody get the Air over the original or the regular? See, like it's very interesting when you think about it. It's like, okay, well, maybe for the accessories, maybe for the performance. It's like, well, they make the iPad in different colors as well. It's weird. Apple has too many iPads in my opinion. Am I the
Well,
only one that thinks that?
no,
Come
you're
on.
not. That's it's very
Like,
I mean,
and then while we're talking about
it's
iPads, um, the iPad Mini has Apple Intelligence now. So they they did update the iPad Mini recently, right? So,
I believe so. I don't quite remember.
but it's still the A17 Pro, which makes me think they didn't. I think they just supported an update personally with the iPad Mini. I don't think
Well, the iPad Mini, it's
they
all. I mean, this is all just this is all just um, it's all a RAM thing, really. I mean, it's just adding more RAM. So if we can thank Apple Intelligence for really giving us 8 GB of RAM, um, in more devices,
Mhm.
maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's it's pretty cool. And speaking of RAM, the iPhone 17 Pro may have 12 GB of RAM, up from 8 GB of RAM. in the 16 Pro. So always a shocker, always a big shocker, when Apple decides to bump the features up a little bit. The phone itself looks ugly. Are you seeing these leaks?
I saw a few. So it seems like, are they going with a redesigned camera bump? Have you seen anything about that?
That's what it's looking like, and it seems to be there's no final design for this yet. I really hope they go the way of the Pixel, despite how they will relentlessly be memed for it.
Yeah, it looks like the Pixel. Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, there's a few options, but none of them are that great. So
yeah, I think it looks just like the Pixel. So if you look at the Pixel 9, the camera is rumored to be just like that. I can't see them doing that. Honestly, I can't. It's too similar, and it's like, I don't know why they would do that. I mean, I'm not saying the Pixel has a bad design. It is flat, but Apple has always had the camera in those three little sections. Like, it's always been like that.
Well, yeah,
You know
they've
what I
always had
mean?
this weird saucepan design ever since the iPhone 11 Pro. I don't know if you remember that. Like, the iPhone was mocked, for that, I believe. I mean, it's a long time ago.
But at this point, it's like iconic, like to have it kind of on the side like that. I don't know. I think if they go the route these rumors are talking about, it would be, yeah. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's like, come on, it looks just like the Pixel. Seriously, like, come on. Now it's funny because the Pixel 9s, they made their phones look like the iPhone. They did have a rounded corner. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
The rounded corner. I mean, what you mean,
I'm
like
talking about the Pixel 8. Before the Pixel 9, Pixels did have a more distinctive rounded sides and corners, and they've gone a little bit more. It literally looks like an iPhone. I mean, if you look at how the Pixel 8 changed to the Pixel 9, Pixel 9 is not new, but they changed the design, and it really resembles an iPhone.
I do have to look at this honestly because I'm not too familiar with the Pixel. I'm gonna go. I see what you're saying. I guess the camera bump. I don't know if it was uglier before or after. I don't know. Google, like, the thing is, like, I honestly don't understand, like, and I'm not a designer, but it's like, why not have the camera bumps just be flush with the back of the phone? Like, I get it. It's like 2 millimeters thicker, but just throw it all into the battery, and then just have the whole back of the phone just be space black. Everything just is absorbed into, like, there's no visual intrusion, and then have a light up Apple logo. I don't know. It's just sort of like people would, just a solid slat. Like the iPhone 5S was the last phone that had that design. Think about that. It was the last phone without a stupid camera bump on the back. But even then there was some visual difference between it all. Like, it would be super cool to just have a space black, like super light absorbent, everything just kind of blends into it, and you just have a white Apple logo, and that's it.
You're talking about to be, yeah.
I mean, I don't know why they're messing around with all this camera, and then you can put the cameras wherever you want. I mean, it's like you could have spatial video, like on opposite sides and the flash in the middle, or mess around with all kinds of positioning, or what. It's just, I don't know what they're up, in, like, I don't know. I don't get it, but I'm not a designer at Apple, so and honestly, if they make it look nice, no one will buy it. you know.
Yeah. They need to that space for the cameras. I mean, why does Google do it? Why did Samsung do it? They do it because they need that little space. They need it a little bit bigger. They can't make it flush. I mean, it just isn't practical. With three cameras, I do think it would be interesting if they stray from, Apple. We've talked about this before. I think it's not just Apple, but I think it's when people look at upgrading their phones, a lot of people do it because they want a distinct, they want to show, hey, I've got the new phone. Oh yeah, that's the new iPhone. Yeah, I mean, look, it's sad to say that, but so many people are built around, again, showing off on social media and stuff like that, right? And so it's like, I kind of think when you take a step back, Apple, if they just make another phone with the same design, people are going to be like, I'll wait another year to upgrade. I think that a lot of people do upgrade when they have bigger design differences. That way, hey, I got the new phone. Look, you can tell. You can easily tell the cameras are flat now or the cameras are long now, and I think look, I think a lot of people, there's some percentage of people that, yeah, they don't want to upgrade unless there's a big enough leap, right, in the design, in the features. And I think a lot of people don't get a new phone every year. A lot of people keep their phones, and not everybody cares what phone you have. It doesn't really matter what phone you have, but I think there is definitely some percentage of the population that's very attached to labels, brands, fashion, fancy clothes, fancy cars, brand, phone. Oh, what model phone? Oh, iPhone versus this. Oh, the low phone. Why do people get the Pro? Why do people get the iPhone 16 Pro? For that very reason. It's the best iPhone, and people know it's got the three cameras. It's got the different color sides or whatever, these different colors. And so I think a lot of people do, they look at it like that.
I mean, it's more of an accessory with a number attached to it, right, than it is a functional product. I mean, the issue is like the function is pretty much the same between the 15 and the 16. It's really not. The biggest difference is the number. Um,
Yeah.
Like,
I just, it makes you wonder, because there is some percentage of the population that wants the best and the newest, and they know that when they have that phone, they'll be seen a certain way. And I think that a lot of people do think that way. I think a lot of people think that way. It's like why people show off on social media, you know and I think it's to create an image, right? And so I think it, for those reasons, Apple also, they know this, the colors, they know the branding, they know, how to get people to upgrade. Because also, it's worth noting that people upgrade their phones. We've talked about this before, but they're not upgrading their phones very often. So if little changes can't get people to upgrade the phone, then maybe they need to make bigger changes, right? Maybe they do. They need to make bigger changes. That way people are like, oh wow, that new phone looks so different. I want it because it's different. You know? You see what I mean?
well, and the design will do a big, I mean, contribute pretty. I mean, that's a big component of it's, again, it's the look. Like, people are inherently visual creatures. It needs to
Yeah.
look different. It needs to look sexy. I mean, that's the whole, and it's like if the iPhone looks the same, like people, I mean, I've had people who are like, "Oh, like, is this the new phone?" And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
"No. Like, this is iPhone 13."
Yeah.
They just, I just don't have a case on it, and it looks like the new phone.
Yeah.
Like they mistake it.
It-
Like nobody really cares. Like what is physically different about the 16 Pro? It has a camera button. Like who's looking for the camera button? I mean, this literally has the it has the antenna cut out. Oh, I have a camera button.
Yeah.
Look, it looks the same.
Yeah.
You know, it
Yeah.
literally looks
Oh,
exactly the same. You know,
oh, but that color, you don't have the color. You don't have the
it's a
16
cool
colors.
color. Yeah, yeah, no one gives a shit about that. I'm sorry. I was like, you know, honestly, I knew about it, and that's why I bought the Sierra Blue, because I was like, oh well, I have to buy the new color, or else no one's gonna even know I have the new color. But it's just sort of like, honestly, I don't think normal people don't really care. You know, and it's like
Well,
they
there
just
you
know.
go, Sam.
You know, I don't know.
Look at
It's kind of crazy, but I feel like a vast majority of people. I mean, I
so
applaud
you
Apple for the camera button. I think it was a good idea. Um, to disguise the antenna bump as something functional. But I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's fascinating. You bought the new color because you wanted to show it. See, it goes to what I was just saying. I think a lot of
Well,
people
yeah,
do
back
that.
4 years ago. I mean, like, because if I'm going to buy a new phone, right, it's just sort of like, you know, why not just buy the color that Tim Apple's telling me to, since I'm already, I mean, I'm already buying it. You know, it's like, might as well just buy the exclusive color, just so it's like, because then again, if it's white, then no one will be able to tell like if it's new or not. You know, and you just have to buy it because you can, not because it's like. The thing is, like, if I'm giving Apple like, you know, $1,500, like, yeah, I'm gonna, like, I want people to know I have the new phone. You know, I'm not just gonna be like, you know, it's like I don't, I don't have the insubordinate amount of money where it's just gonna be like, I don't really care what. I mean, it's sort of like, I don't know, like, I don't care what color it is personally, so I'm just gonna buy the new color so that people who do care think it's new, because that's
Yeah,
how little.
but that's a lot of people's logic,
But
and
I don't
that's
know
why
if that's
people
just
upgrade their phone.
mental
No,
gymnastics, you know. But it's like,
no,
I personally don't care about the color, so I might as well just buy the color that will make people think it's new, and then like, oh,
I
okay.
think yeah, that's exactly why
I
I
mean, like,
think
I would have bought the
people
desert titanium. I don't know, just because it's like, oh, it's cool, you know. And in a
they
way,
didn't
it's like
have that with.
you switch up the color every time you buy a phone. It's different. It's fresh, you know.
So they didn't have desert titanium for the 13, and the 13 isn't titanium. But the camera, it looks the same because the
Well,
camera
yeah,
bump is
and that's
different.
what's the other thing. Nobody knows the difference between the materials. I mean, it's a metal band, too. By the way,
Yeah,
it's lighter
yeah,
when you hold it. Like, yeah, it was,
sure. And they're
and
not
then
holding
the
it.
camera
You're
button.
holding it. Yeah.
I mean, nobody can physically tell the difference. I mean, are the photos like maybe marginally better? Absolutely. Is the camera bump bigger? Sure. It's like maybe 2 millimeters bigger. Is someone going to go around with like a little, you know, caliper to measure your camera bump and see exactly, you know, how big your camera bump is? And, you know, and
I
it's
mean, maybe
like,
if they're buying your used phone and you're pretending like it's a 16 when you really have a
well, they just
13.
look up the serial number at that point. I mean, I would, I wouldn't be breaking out my caliper. I don't know, but
Yeah,
I mean, I
that's
really
funny.
do. I think Apple needs to kind of get on the 2 year iPhone release cycle, because it's like, dude, I don't know how. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, like, necessarily who really. I don't know. I'm sure some people buy it. Like, honestly, I don't know. Maybe I underestimate like who buys or how many, you know, like, iPhone sales over time.
I
You
mean,
know,
look, people
let's
are
ask
buying
Rock.
phones,
You know,
but people are buying Sam phones less frequently. I mean, they're selling phone. I mean, but also Android has I think caught up. And I don't think it's like the most popular thing, but I do think that Android, the Pixel series, it appeals to a lot of people. I do. I truly think that it appeals to a lot of people to get a Pixel or a Samsung or whatever when the ecosystem is more developed now. Do you know what I mean? It's a more developed phone than it used to be, and the performance, and it looks great. And so I think that Apple doesn't necessarily have the edge. I think that again, we go back, we talk about it all the time, the ecosystem of Apple, right? So that's probably a larger component in my opinion. What did you find? What did Grok tell you? Did you look it up?
Well, we are using deep search on Grok. It's funny because it's Statista does a lot of kind of stat tracking, and it's the AI is kind of getting hung up on because Statista makes you register and pay a large amount of money for their market insights. So the AI got
So is
foiled. So right now
so how is
it's still researching. We're about 60 seconds in.
so
With
how does
25
Grok get its
voices.
information? It's not just using X content, right? Like it's
No,
that's
so
what
yeah, so you have the option to use deep search, which is kind of more aligned with deep research with Gemini. Where it will essentially continually kind of dig down into more and more web pages and more sources that it can use. And then it will, I think, what was it? We have like 33 sources here.
Mhm.
So I just asked it for a line graph essentially of the iPhone. I don't know if it can generate a line graph, but we got a little we got a small table.
Interesting.
But it
Also,
honestly seems to have peaked in 2015. Now,
wow,
too,
with the frequency of people upgrading, right?
well, just people buying the new phone. I mean, it's kind of been a slow. The iPhone 11 was kind of a bust. The iPhone 13 had a resurgence, but there's only data up to 2022. I think you probably have to pay for more data.
So
Because in a
is
way,
Grok
it is a
using
valuable.
how is Grok getting its data?
I mean, there's 25 different web pages that it utilizes.
So it's just scraping. It's just searching the internet using its own scraping thing.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, that's what deep search and deep research and all the these AI related tools. You know,
Oh, so speaking of AI, we've almost gone this whole episode without talking about it. I found a really interesting AI thing, analytic kinda, and it is called Highlighted.ai. And
Highlighted.ai. Let's check it out.
it is a it is a tool that shows how popular results are when they're brought up in AI. Does that make sense? Like I don't know how to say it, but it highlighted. It's like what are AI overviews highlighting? And so it tracks your AI visibility as a brand, as a company, or as a keyword, right?
Oh my god,
And so
it's SEO for AI. Oh my god.
basically, exactly. It's basically like how is your brand being exactly. And so they claim that they track your visibility across major AI providers: Perplexity, Google, ChatGPT, Claude, Meta. They don't mention Grok, but anyway, they have a money back guarantee, and so anyway, um, I've tried it, and I'm impressed. But I think again with these tracking tools, you need to be in it. You need to be in it for more than a week or two. So, but no, I think these things provide valuable insights. But it fascinates me how AI, a tool like Highlighted. Highlighted.ai, it's tracking your visibility in AI. Isn't that interesting? Where like, because think about it, people are going to start using AI instead of maybe Google, right? And so it's interesting, you know.
No, I mean
I don't understand
it's
how
not a bad idea, honestly, and like that's what kind of gets that's what gets me going. I mean, because you're right. I mean, for the same reason people don't Google anything anymore, they're going to use. I mean, they're using ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude to answer a lot of these questions, and it's kind of created a new SEO frontier. As a brand, it's like, well, shoot, now I got to figure out how my brand is being represented in AI responses. And that's just like, it sounds dumb, but it's not. No, I think there's value there.
And so just to clarify, I think what's going on with a tool like this, it seems like it asks the same prompt every day and then tracks if you appear. Does that make sense? So
Well,
it's
so
not.
no, yeah, you're right. So I'm looking at the FAQ right now. So essentially, yeah, it runs a specific prompt every day across quote unquote different temperatures. So temperatures is kind of like how likely is the how creative and off the wall is the AI going to be? Like what's its energy of response in a way? Like high energy could mean more creative, or perhaps off the wall responses, or too low could mean pretty pretty straightforward, or I don't know. But no, I mean it's kind of something like that. You know, as far as that goes, which again it seems interesting. I don't know, like it's kind of interesting though, because when I hear a brand being mentioned, um you know at least in an AI, like I don't necessarily know, like usually when I ask an AI to search the internet, I have web access turned on, in that sense. So it's browsing the internet for me. So it's not really I don't know what it's suggesting.
Yeah. Well, uh,
Um, versus
mhm.
like finding um I mean, I think it's just searching the internet for me in that way. I don't think it's like mentioning. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Like,
Are
I
you
don't
still
think.
talking about this tool? Are you still referring to highlighted, or what are you talking about?
Well, yeah, like the value of it mentions your brand in an AI response. Well, most
Oh,
using
yes.
AI to search the web, it actually searches the web, and then it quote unquote tries to find what's most relevant, more or less, to like your query. So I don't know, like I don't know how different it is, other just from standard SEO. You know what I'm saying? Because the
Well,
AI
what's
still
interesting.
searches the internet and then mentions your response if it seems relevant. So I
I
don't know
see.
what is it that different than a traditional
Well,
SEO
yes, because it's
product?
LLM. Well, yes,
Because
because it's an LLM. I think it's an
well, yeah,
LLM that's
it's just
trained. I
running the
think.
search over and over, like a ton of searches instead of just like,
Yeah.
but they're all kind of related.
Yeah. So
Um,
it's seeing if it ever, and I guess it just tracks performance over time, because if you're not mentioned and then you are. What I originally thought that Highlighted did was I thought that they tracked AI interest. So where you could see, wow, 500 people asked AI about this keyword. That's not what it does. I thought they had some backdoor data access, all the APIs that we get, right? And I anonymous, of course, but I thought that they would have some sort of data from the large language model providers. Do you know what I mean? But I
Well,
don't think they're doing
it doesn't seem like they have any sort of internal data. It just seems like they run queries, I guess.
Yeah.
But
So it's interesting. It's very interesting approach. I don't know. I don't know. And also, it makes you wonder if you have a tool like this running queries asking about a topic that's relevant to your brand. It's interesting to see, does that sway future results to the LLM? So I don't think anyone really knows that, but if a lot of people suddenly ask about a topic, maybe it's highlighted running it every day, right? Is that going to change the model's response because there's demand all of a sudden? So anyway, it makes me wonder. There's a few key points, but anyway, we will keep you updated. We're here every Tuesday. And yeah,
absolutely.
exciting Apple updates and tariffs hopefully don't impact
Well,
the
they
economy
weren't
too
that
much.
exciting. You don't have to. We could be honest. They were
It's
as they would say mid. And that's being very charitable. Okay.
well, we'll have to see. We'll have to check back in and see how the iPhone 17, how the pricing is, and I think it's going to be higher than we think. So, and it just is
We'll
going to
see.
keep feeding into people not upgrading their phones. It's crazy. So anyway, stay tuned. You can always reach out to the show on X at tech_talk_live or on the web at techtalklive.xyz. Sign up for our mailing list, get updates about the show, and find us anywhere you get your podcasts. So, signing off for this Tuesday.
Absolutely. Talk to you guys next week. Peace.